Well, good afternoon, and welcome to the annual meeting for 2024 of the US-Asia Technology Management Center. It's great to see people who are affiliated with our center. It's great to see new friends. It's great to see people who are curious what we're all about. And so today, I'm Richard Dasher. I direct the center, and I will start off with kind of a status report of where we are. First thing is what's going to happen. I'll give the update and sort of where we're going strategy-wise. Then we have 4 activities reports from current visiting scholars who are sent by companies to be with us at the US-Asia Technology Management Center for 1 year, and they can extend for a second year. Then we have a special update with Dr. Amit Kapoor about the India Dialog initiative, which made life easier for me because Amit put together some great slides. And we'll take a break, and then for the second half of the program, we'll have a keynote presentation and Q&A with Professor Strebulaev. His book has just come out yesterday, in fact, and we had advanced copies. So for those of you who are here in person, we have copies you can pick up at break. And let me suggest that you pick them up at break during the back, and probably at the end of the formal session, I'll be over there and Professor Strebulaev will come here and sign book copies for whoever wants him to sign. So we have a kind of special day planning, in planning, and we'll do our informal networking at the end of the formal session. So this is our 32nd year of continuous operation at the US-Asia Technology Management Center. I've only been here for 31 of those years. I was not the first person in the center. The center started in Stanford's Electrical Engineering Department with a focus on US-Japan. We immediately started doing the seminar series that many of you know us by from fall 2002. And we were focusing on bringing in information about new technologies from Japan to let the Silicon Valley community know what was going on. We were the first place outside Japan that Dr. Shuji Nakamura presented his blue LED technology that later received the Nobel Prize. We were the first place outside Japan that Sharp presented a 20-inch liquid crystal display monitor, which was bigger than anything else at that time. So we started that. We started using advanced video conferencing to do programs with Japan. The very first one that was a public program with audiences in 3 places was with Paris and Tokyo and here, and it was on disaster management. This was right after the Northridge earthquake in California and also after a major Japanese earthquake. So there was a lot of interest, and we saw, though, that with the appearance of the internet, as everybody moved onto the web and more information came online, the need to bring new information from one place to another diminished. So we shifted to focus on innovation in new business areas with a focus that we broadened to Asia and received university approval to become the US-Asia Technology Management Center in the year 2000. About that time, we got off government money and have been all industry money. And that should make the US government happy because the stated goal of that grant was that it was seed funding that would later be picked up by the stakeholders in the community. Our next biggest thing that happened to us was 17 years later when we became a membership-based industry affiliates program. At that time, we also moved from the Electrical Engineering Department over to the Center for East Asian Studies, which is part of Stanford's Global Studies Initiative. So as a membership-based center, our primary financial support, including all of our salaries and all of the costs that we entail, is paid for by annual fees and additional research support from our member companies. We also do some sponsored seminars where if we give a seminar to a non-member company, we'll typically ask for payment so that we're not using our member company's money to pay for somebody else getting benefit. Our research is into three main areas: the impact of new technologies on industry value chains. A lot of this is forward-looking, basically predictive. We look a lot at open innovation management, especially the relationships between startup companies and big firms, and also regional innovation systems. Silicon Valley is not the way entrepreneurship works just about anywhere else except Silicon Valley. And looking at the different dynamics in the flow of people, the flow of capital, and the flow of knowledge is what we mean by a regional innovation system. So we do research. We also engage in knowledge exchange. First, knowledge exchange to the Stanford community. We're producing and delivering new educational content to Stanford students. We also do knowledge exchange for our member companies, of course, and as mandated from the very beginning of our center, we are very active in organizing public programs, especially for the Silicon Valley community, but now everything is online, and we're delighted that we have people from 5 or 6 different countries in most of our programs. So right now we have 18 member companies. 16 are from Japan. Last year, we welcomed our first company from Korea, Impact.ai, and our first company from China, Yeelight Technologies. And you see that over half of our companies are sending us visiting scholars. A few of our visiting companies do not have a specific person as a visiting scholar, but they're engaging with us the kind of time commitment on our side that's equivalent. So that company is designated as receiving additional research support. We're also hosting a couple of visiting scholars from outside of our member community. Mr. Ogawa, who spoke for us in our presentation, you're sitting here somewhere, there you are, who spoke for us in our seminar yesterday, and also Professor Robert Eberhardt, who is now the director of the Ehlers Center for International Business at University of San Diego. I want to say a special thanks to everyone who's a visiting scholar here. You will see many references to them in the activities that we've engaged in. You are making a wonderful contribution to the richness of the Stanford community. And so, that's what's going on. So our first thing I'll do is go into our knowledge exchange. This is the bulk of my presentation. For member companies, we're doing regular meetings on timely topics. We're sharing information and insights via email, via websites. Of course, I'm meeting regularly with each one of our visiting scholars, but I also visit our member companies pretty frequently. And we have a lot of Stanford visits by other people from corporate headquarters or wherever. We also give our member companies preferential inclusion in our public programs. Often we can get them in at a reduced registration fee or for free. For the Stanford community, we're delivering courses. These, one of the specific kind of things, our seminars are very unusual. You don't find things like this at many places. We're bringing in speakers mostly from outside Stanford, from industry, from government, some from other universities, and we've always had mixed audiences between Silicon Valley community people and students so that everyone can learn from each other. Public outreach is still important. This is the transition. So the university seminars, we also do big programs that are co-produced with other organizations. And we do a lot of meetings and presentations and so forth. This is where we're going. Here's a list of our meetings targeted specifically at member companies over the last year. So you will see that we had our annual meeting, and the annual meeting is always open to the public. Stanford is an open place. And so even when I say that these meetings are for our member companies, anyone in the Stanford community is welcome to attend. And basically, if you send me a note in advance, I'll say come and attend as our guest. The point, though, is that the companies get advanced kind of push marketing for the kind of things that we're bringing in. You'll see that we've got a number of academics besides Professor Bao in our annual meeting last year, and this year, of course, Professor Strebulaev. We were very fortunate to have Professor Galina Bestramyanaya, who was visiting from Moscow, to present joint work that she and I and one of her colleagues has been doing in economic measurement of things like differences in R&D management, and again this spring in regard to cashless payment systems in Japan. We had Professor Reinhold Dauskart present a low-cost for cell manufacturing. And we have also had a couple of times when other organizations invited our group to join with them. I gave the dinner presentation for the Stanford eWare initiative last year, and they were kind enough to invite our whole community. And then again, we had a Zoom meeting that for a program done in Tokyo by Mitsui Fudosan and the Stanford Blockchain Club that our group was welcome to. So that's one of the main kind of benefits for our members. Also, getting into kind of the university side, the courses, the seminars I mentioned, we also support a number of regular courses. I'm teaching Japanese business culture and systems in winter quarter every other year, and then every other year I'm cooperating with Dr. Kapoor to teach rebalancing economic systems in a world driven by technology. We're also hosting Dr. Kapoor, who has kindly donated his time to Stanford to teach a course in winter on innovation and competitiveness in Asia, and also on understanding modern India. And these are really great additions to the Stanford curriculum. There really hasn't been that much on modern India. This is our current seminar series. This was last fall. So every fall, our seminars have some sort of a focus on a specific theme, which last year was the digital economy. And we looked at various issues, business opportunities, governance issues. The particular picture here was Matt Sheehan, who had just published a major article on understanding AI governance in China. This spring, this is the one we're right in the middle of. We just finished our presentation on climate tech investing in Asia yesterday, and we have a couple of sessions left in this series. One thing you'll notice about these is that we do a lot of panel discussions in our seminar series. We find that this is a good way to kind of give maximum number of perspectives in the minimum possible time. We will make these slides available on the internet. We will post them on the internet, so don't feel like you have to try to take notes. The Japanese Business Culture and Systems is a regular university course. It's about the sociocultural basis of business in Japan. I see some people who've taken the course who are with us today. A couple of special things that we do in this course every year. We have a program on women in Japanese business that I usually get somebody else to moderate, so I just stay aside and either I'm not there or I get to listen like somebody in the audience. This year, we had two of our visiting scholars, Jenna Yang and also Makiko Kawabe, who is no longer a visiting scholar, but she had been up until last year, presented on what it's like to be a woman and work in Japan or for a Japanese company. We also have an alumni panel where we keep in touch with students who took this course in previous years. We had 6 people who took this course in all the way back to 1995, came in and spoke to the students this year by Zoom. It was a Zoom meeting. And we also have a pitch session where students they identify American companies that they think will do well in Japan. The condition is that the company should not already be in Japan. So a lot of startup companies. And I hit some of our good contacts in the Japanese business community of Silicon Valley to act like investors and hear the pitches. It's great fun for everybody, and years later, people still remember what company they pitched. They don't remember my lectures. Anyway, so besides that, we're getting on to the sort of public outreach side. The seminars are open. With regard to large kind of programs, one that we've been doing since 2011 is the Japan-US Innovation Awards. This is jointly with the Japan Society of Northern California. I chair the steering committee. We present an Emerging Leader Award to one US company and to one Japanese company that we think are going to transform an industry. The first US company we picked in 2011 was Tesla Motors. We have also picked Zoom in 2019 before the pandemic gave them a considerable acceleration. The next symposium we will have is in July this year. It's open to the public. We're delighted for anyone to come. And as I mentioned with Dr. Kapoor is going to give us a special talk about the India Dialog initiative. The Institute for Competitiveness in India is our partner in this. We're doing a yearly summit at Stanford. We're planning the next one for late February of 2025. This year, we had over 40 speakers in this 2-day program, including Professor Mazumdar, who is the Dean of the new Dewar School of Sustainability at Stanford, and also Dr. Amitabh Kant, who is the G20 Sherpa for the government of India. We have a monthly India Dialogue conversation that's a webinar, typically about 8 in the morning. And you're welcome to get up and, since it's a webinar, you don't even have to, shave before you watch the program. We're also putting working papers up on the internet, and this is our channel for supporting these new Stanford courses on India. So I'll let Dr. Kapoor talk more about that. I did want to say that the summit has really started attracting attention. Essentially, we need to keep the audience size limited to a dull roar, right? About 230 people actually attended in person this year, so that we can have more interaction between audience and speakers. But we archive these for the public on YouTube, and as you see, we have the top 2, sessions on our YouTube have received over 10,000 views. This is 1 month after the program was over this year. This one by Sanjeev Sanyal had received over 25,000 views. And the total was 88,000 page views by March 29th. So we're delighted that we're able to reach a broad audience with this content. This is an old picture, but I couldn't find one I liked better for this year. We're hosting a lot of visitors at Stanford. They come as guests, clients, and also executives from our member companies. They come from prospective member companies. They come from government innovation offices. I've got a more detailed list in a little bit. We're hosting somebody really on average about twice a week. This is a picture from January of last year of Mayor Kazuko Kori, who of Sendai, Japan, along with, I think, 12 entrepreneurs and some people from Sendai office of JETRO and so forth. We were also privileged to host the visit by the Prime Minister of Thailand to Stanford during the APEC meetings. So as you see, he had a meeting here with, heavyweights on the university side. I'm hiding behind, I think, somebody from the business school. And, this is Dean Whittam, the Dean of Engineering at Stanford. So it was a very high profile visit. After this session inside the conference room, he met with Thai students who were attending Stanford. And I think that was the session he really enjoyed. So this is kind of the list, just to give you a sense of some of the recent groups that we have been or will be meeting with. The governor of Aichi Prefecture comes a little bit later this month. I hosted 2 people from the policy board of the Bank of Japan this February. We had both Saitama City and also Tokyo Metropolitan Government sent a delegation in January. And on a trip to India, I briefed the Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister last October. We're meeting all sorts of other groups too. J-Star Entrepreneurs, this is a government entrepreneur support program in Japan for women entrepreneurs, and we were asked to host them through the Women's Startup Lab here. I give a lot of talks outside. I was very happy that Mitsubishi Corporation, our member company, introduced me to their India subsidiary, and the India subsidiary then asked me to give the keynote talk for their India Innovation Forum for about 500 or 600 people in Delhi. Doing various other kinds of guest lectures. I'm on a number of service activities. The main reason to put this here is because it really does impact the kind of visibility of our center. I'm evaluating universities, I'm evaluating large grant proposals. I'm on the editorial board for the Journal of Cyber Policy out of Chatham House, and I'm on the steering committee of the High Level Forum and so forth. So I do have a slide on travel. Most of the travel, we're not charging to our member companies. We're not charging to our budget. I'm able to piggyback on requests for me to go give talks at different places. And I use this to go give presentations at our member companies. Also, I typically have a yearly dinner with former visiting scholars in Tokyo and also alumni of my classes who are living in Japan. And yeah, this has kind of already been there. And I will continue to do the high-level forum work. We're going to Hsinchu, Taiwan in November this year. So our plans, we'll basically keep doing what we're doing, staying in our main theme areas. We're planning to repeat our courses on the same kind of schedule that we've been repeating. Our topic this fall will be innovations in supply chains and manufacturing in Asia. And we're already starting to put together the speakers. We're going to also continue to support curriculum content on innovation and competitiveness in modern India. And we're exploring putting together a course on the impact of entrepreneurship ideology on society. Are people really overly excited about entrepreneurship? And continue to expand our inclusion of India. We expect that we will stay about the same size, maybe increase by 2 or 3 companies by next year. In 2022, we had 17 member companies. In 2023, we had 15. This year, we have 18, so you get to see the track. So that's it. Delighted that you're here to share our kind of discussion today. I'm afraid I took all of my time, and we will have a chance to discuss this informally afterward. But I will stop sharing now. We'll move on to the next part of the program. And because of the complexities of doing a Zoom meeting along with auditorium sound system, we have our next presentation is by video from another room in this building somewhere. So Brianna, I think we're ready for you to give Jenna's presentation. Our first visiting scholar presentation is by Ms. Jenna Yang of Nihon Life X, their Silicon Valley office.
Hello, I'm Diana Yang from Nippon Life X Silicon Valley office. Since 2023, I've been serving as a visiting scholar at US-ATMC. As my second child is due at end of May, I deliver my presentation through a pre-recorded video. I'm originally from Dalian, China, and studied management engineering at Tokyo Institute of Technology before joining Nippon Life in 2012. After 2 years in the IT department, I spent 5 years in the global business department, managing overseas insurance and asset management business, and also M&A projects. From 2019, I've been with Nippon Life X, focusing on integrating cutting-edge technologies into our business. Currently, I work closely with Dr. Dr on AI-centric research. Nippon Life is established in 1889, is the largest life insurance company in Japan, and ranks 7th globally in terms of total assets. Nippon Life X is our innovation engine. We focus on enhancing our insurance business through technology and creating new business. With offices in Silicon Valley, Tokyo, and Singapore, we aim to stay at the forefront of innovation. In Silicon Valley, we invest strategically with a $400 million budget and conduct R&D, focusing on areas like Gen AI and new AI business development. I will present my activities at US-ATMC. Since April 2023, I've been learning a startup innovation framework from Dr. Dr and applying it to select strategic investment targets. Additionally, I've been driving POCs with startups, especially focusing on Lazarus, a startup with a large language model. I've also been consulting with Dr. Dr on how to integrate this POC with our existing business units. Starting July 2023, I've been collaborating with Dr. Dr to explore how financial institutes, including life insurance companies, can benefit from generative AI. We've found that in the early stage of commercial generative AI use, it's important to focus on areas where errors from hallucinations are low risk, like sales, marketing, and customer management. Additionally, I've been researching essential topics for Nippon Life, such as employee training and AI regulations, as we have positioned AI business as a midterm management strategy. Furthermore, leveraging networking operations at US-ATMC, Nippon Life has partnered with Stanford Medicine for advanced AI research. More details will follow on the next page. Beginning this April, Nippon Life collaborates with Professor Bruce Lin's translational medicine lab at Stanford Medicine to predict critical transitions in chronic disease. 2 visiting scholars from Nippon Life will join the project, aiming to develop AI capabilities within our organization. I'll briefly introduce my upcoming activities at US-ATMC. Due to maternity leave until the end of July, during my absence, other members of the Nippon Life X Silicon Valley office will conduct research on long-term care industry-related topics with Dr. Dr. After my return, I plan to continue collaborating with Dr. Dr on researching business use cases for creating specialized AI business in insurance and healthcare sectors. Additionally, I intend to leverage the US-ATMC network to explore potential partners for our AI business. Finally, I want to thank Dr. Dr and everyone at US-ATMC. Dr. Dr guidance and the US-ATMC's network have driven our initiatives forward. Thank you for your attention.
Is Mr. Hiroaki Kaneko from Hamamatsu Iwata Shinkin Bank. And yeah. So Kaneko-san has been with us for 2 full years. So he will be moving back to Japan this summer, and we will have a new visiting scholar from Hamashin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hiroaki Kaneko from Hamamatsu Iwata Shinkin Bank. Today, I'd like to give you an overview of our company and my activities. Hamamatsu Iwata Shinkin Bank has a history over 70 years. I think we are the most challenging thinking bank in Japan. That's why I'm here to stand. I'm the only thinking bank employee in the US. And the thinking bank is a financial institution that serves a limited area and whose customers are local residents and SMEs. Unlike commercial banks, which are joint stock company, Shinkin banks are financial institutions that are operated with capital contributions from their members, and their basic principles are not profit, mutual aid, and solidarity. Working closely with the local community and acting first and foremost for the development of the community is its mission. The slide shows the major companies and universities in our area. As you can see, we are home to many world-class manufacturing companies. This means that we are a region that is greatly affected by shift and trend in the supply chain. With us, we have created an environment where startups and SMEs can launch new businesses. In 2020, we launched a new venture acceleration and support program named Fuse. The concept is for everyone who starts something. You can experience all the processes necessary for startup here: working space, event space, publication space. The event space hosts events once or twice a week. We have an acceleration program for startup as well. Currently, there are over 250 members with startups, SMEs, and large companies registered. I have 4 missions and rules for Fuse. F, future for startups. U, urge for SMEs. S, synergy for region. E, empowerment for employees. In line with these missions, here are some of the activities I have been involved in with Dr. Dash. First, proper evaluation of startups. Second, trend research. Third, how to introduce Silicon Valley. The first was to use a framework for evaluating startups, and with Dr. Dash's advice, the process includes which points of a startup to focus on. I researched the feasibility and the market for the industry as well. With regard to number 2 trend research, regardless of the industry, I wrote reports on area that were hot in Silicon Valley and held small study sessions with members of our company to share them, catching up them on topics such as AI, semiconductors, and I attended the conference I attended for something. Based on this report, I had discussions with Dr. Deshat each time. As an example of number 3, introducing Silicon Valley, on behalf of our company, I host a week-long program. 8 our clients and 6 our employees visited Silicon Valley for a design thinking workshop and pitches to VC, CVCs, and business companies. It was an inspiring and stimulating experience for them. Finally, I know it is obvious, but it is important for local companies and startups, including ours. First, our own constant global perspective and understanding of trends. Second, local startups and SMEs in Japan need to think about the market globally including the US, rather than focusing only on the Japanese market. Third, Silicon Valley is the epicenter of new information and people. It is important to experience Silicon Valley in person long enough to understand its dynamics and also to keep up by visiting once in a while to see what is happening here. Finally, I have been so happy to spend time with Dr. Dasha at US-ATMC since 2022. He has taught me many important things and has been very helpful. Kimberly, Brianna, and visiting scholars, they all helped me learn and grow. You all were there for me when I needed advice or someone to talk to. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So as Ito-san comes up, I've got one follow-up question for you. So in some ways, the whole Hamamatsu area kind of reminds me of what Silicon Valley was before the IT boom. It had some industry. It had a lot of agriculture. And so in developing the Hamamatsu area from now, what do you think it needs? What's the one thing it needs the most in order to move forward with innovation?
Yes. I have been experienced in Silicon Valley. First of all, the culture of Silicon Valley is different from that of Japan. This means that it is helpful for Japanese people and company to have various ways of looking at ways of things and diverse ways of thinking.
Yeah. Actually, I think that's a good answer, to look at other ways of how things are, right? And make them, change them, transform them to fit your area. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Ito-san, our next presentation is Mr. Hiroyuki Ito from Hokoku Bank. And Hokoku Bank is in the city, based in the city of Kanazawa on the Japan seaside of Japan.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Hiroyuki Ito from the Kapoor Bank. So I've been in Silicon Valley for almost 2 years as a visiting scholar. So today I'd like to make a okay. Okay, so today I'd like to make a presentation as my activity report and also the outcome I got here. So okay, so let's start. So here's the outline of the Hokoku Bank. So Hokoku Bank is a Japanese regional bank. It's headquartered in the Kanazawa, center of Japan, and our business scale as of this March gives us this slide. So I think my bank is just a middle-sized Japanese bank. And this is our future market challenge. So this graph shows that focus is total population in our operational base. And as you can see, the total population in my region will decrease gradually in the future. So it's meaning that the Hokoku Bank has the future risk of the market shrinkage. So considering the future risk, my company, Hokoku Bank, has a vision and the concept of the new business expansion. So our vision is like we make our region better place, like on the left side. So based on this vision, the Hokoku Bank is trying to not only improve our existing business on the left side, but also expand a new business in the new area for the traditional Japanese regional bank to tackle the serious regional issues caused by depopulation, as I mentioned in the previous slide. So in order to achieve this blueprint, so we realized we need to know how to create a new business, so outside of our existing box. So this is why I was sent to the Silicon Valley by my company. So my interest is what are the best practice for Japanese companies in Silicon Valley to develop new businesses. So the reason why I picked up the Japanese companies in my interest is that like I support that the Japanese companies are like conservative, too conservative, and not good at the innovation from the perspective of like taking risk for the future business. And unfortunately, my company has the same or similar problem with it. So I wanted to know like the Japanese companies in Silicon Valley, how Japanese companies in Silicon Valley tackle innovation, or how they try to develop businesses beyond such cultural issues. And so I put some items on the bottom side. So the first definition of innovation. Of course, we can find so many definitions about innovation from the books, articles, and websites. So through the activities in Silicon Valley and through the discussion with Dr. Dr, finally, I defined that the innovation is to like address and catch up systematically and flexibly with like new threats to our existing business, like coming from the new technology. And next, so essentials and the process of the innovation and or new business creation. So I searched about what kind of essentials like factors or skills and also the process we need to know and have for innovation. The last one, the interview to Japanese companies in Silicon Valley. So through so many interviews, I collected information like what Japanese companies achieved in Silicon Valley, what kind of insights they got, or what they still struggle with to achieve innovation. So about my the most valuable activities for me. So first, the conferences. So I attended so many conferences regarding the technology, smart city, and fintech. And so by attending them, I got so many insights and to know the technology trends. The second one, the US-ATMC meetings. So we had some opportunities to discuss with the speakers invited by Dr. Dasher, and I'm feeling seriously. Those discussions were so and super insightful and critical to my interest, as I showed in the previous slide. And the next, the networking with other Stanford affiliates, including the US-ATMC members and the biggest Japanese companies in Silicon Valley, were so great opportunities to get me so many hints for innovation from the academic perspective and also the like business perspective as well. So here is the insights I've got in Silicon Valley. So the first one, as a start point, we need a strong commitment from executives to get the like human resources and plenty of budget for the new business development. And second, so when we try to develop a new business, the consistency with the company's core vision is important. However, I think we should not persist in our original roadmap to in order to get new insights and a new idea flexibly, which like we can never come up with inside our stereotype. And third one, so keep the focus on Horizon 3. So I mean that Horizon 3 is that foster innovation. So not just like business optimization or not accelerating the adoption. So we need to explore new markets, and if so, we can maximize the advantage to be in the Silicon Valley. And before coming to Silicon Valley, I suppose that like the Silicon Valley is a place to look for the technology, just the technology. However, after coming here, I realized that here is a place where like we can explore or try to develop a new business model by collaborating with third parties, including the startups. Last one, so we need to continually learn from the effort, including even failures, and need to accumulate knowledge internally through these learnings for next opportunities. So as a conclusion, I found out that we need to like build a system for the reproducible innovation. with these insights above. So after I go back to Japan, by utilizing these insights and experience I got in Silicon Valley, I'd like to create develop a new business in this area on the right side. So it means the Horizon 3 for the Hokkoku Bank. So in order to achieve our vision, we make our region better place. So from me, that is, thank you so much. And I appreciate that and other members. So I think it's a unique problem because I think the Hokkoku Bank try to create new businesses, but it's comes from only the top down. So without any bottom up style. So from my opinion, so I'd like to make opportunities so anyone can create or think an idea for the next project or next business. So yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for introduction, Professor Dasher. Nice to meet you. Actually, this the second time for me to speak in this place. Maybe 1 year ago, I speak as a guest speaker in this lecture. Anyway, nice to meet you again. My name is Chang Hwan. I am the CEO of the Strebulaev Holding. Let me talk about the company's overview. My company. Slogan of my company is to build the future together and innovator for the society. I really like this goal, and I did want to achieve this goal. For achieve this goal, I make three mission and vision and values. And the mission is by creating multiple businesses, we aim to maximize business impact. The vision through a business impact, we promote renewable and contribute the development of civilization. Lastly, the value. We aim to achieve business implementation. For achieve this mission, vision, value, we have mainly three original solutions, mainly three solutions. First of all, corporate innovation, and second, talent and transformation. And lastly, business creation. Along with provide original solution, we aim to create a business over large scale that represent Asia by investing capital and resource and knowledge necessary for business impact. Why can I do those difficult things is because of my the career, the result of, from the past career. My first career was DNA Corporation, a Japanese company. I led the development and management of the mutual business creation initiative league, including a design and heading a Japanese largest taxi dispatch app. It's named TaxiGo. The second career, Liquid Holdings, I avoided for the framework for the corporate innovation with a conglomerate company. What I mean is Liquid has a lot of big business in the same company by using AI matching algorithms. And I engaged in the venture investment. The third, I changed to be entrepreneur. A startup spin out from the autonomous vehicle technology of the Tokyo University. I'm sorry, it's a long spelling of the University of Tokyo and Kanazawa University. Japanese specific autonomous algorithm. For now, as I told you, I am a founder and the CEO, 100% of share, Firenze and Firenze Holdings. Establishing a business investment and consulting firm to lead the creating of the large-scale innovation. The large-scale innovation is a very important word for me. Sometimes I invest 10 or 20 million of in my primary money, and the amount of the invest is dollar and more than 100 million now. So how can I learn faster? It is because of the word. In Japanese, it's kokorozashi. That's my favorite the word in Japanese. And let's go talk about my activity. I will talk about overview of my activity in Stanford University as a visiting scholarship. In my first year as a visiting scholar, I participated in variable activities that provide hint for creating large scale of innovation. Yes, I did at several, how can I say it, scale of the business in Japan, but I want to make a larger scale of innovation to getting the knowledge and to learn how to learn the method achieve the goal. And through research and practice, maybe I think it's the best way for the learning, not only the studying, not only the practice, but the both of the very important thing for me. I believe I have advanced my research activities to maximize learning effectiveness by number one, observing trend and advanced technology. Number two, investigating actual business situation. And number three, devising theoretical framework. Mainly, I want to talk about specific activity. What I did is regular meeting with Professor Dr, then attending classes in the Stanford University, the networking to meet the VCs in order to cooperate and to invest the meet an entrepreneur as a clue. And at least I want, and I met a researcher of the deep technology. And lastly, out of Stanford, I spend a lot of time to join those kind of activities. So doing those activities, I found it in order to achieve my goal, I want to make a larger scale of innovation. We need a new innovation model. Let's say when considering leverage AI and what else advanced technology to large scale of innovation, the existing model are inadequate for fostering extension innovation. What I mean is, let's say the taxi application, you are the owner of the taxi application model one, you can make a strategy, and you already have organization, and you already have operation. Then you can hire the IT engineer. You can make a taxi app, but you can be a success in the business model. The second, whatever it is, okay, but let's say the big company in Japan, in US, the same thing. The top management make a strategy and organization and operation already fixed. In the IT, you use AI. In order to use AI, you need to make a data. So you need to hire SIR, NRI, something like that. And the same thing is pretty easy, super easy. But no bigger business scale it is. How about a taxi and application go? Yes, we change all of the operation and all of the organization in the taxi, and that is the most important thing. What I want to say is, in this model, the most crucial aspect is designing and scheme where all items continuously learn from each other, such as machine learning. Advanced technology makes decision making very, very, very difficult. For now, I'm really focused on how to develop and improve to the AI embedded model. That is the new model, and the science of decision making. I want to say in my research strategy, problem is provisionally set, and improvement is studied as a hypothesis. I really talk about a lot of things with Professor Dr in order to make a good hypothesis. He gave me a lot of valuable advice and spent a lot of time. And then the item of improvement may be a change in the future. But now I have four hypotheses For strategy, I think we need to change mindset and start thinking. And for organization, we need to change the information gap. Third, operation, we need to make a good decision-making process. So lastly, we need to have a good talent transformation who has good knowledge and deep knowledge for the product and system. That's all. In the next year, I have planned to focus on decision-making process. It's very obvious in my hypothesis, decision-making is the most important item. That's all. Thank you for your patience, and then I'll see you again.
Thanks, Chang-Hwan. As we get ready for Dr. Kapoor, Chang-Hwan, you have a really unusual background. We have kind of maybe one visiting scholar or two visiting scholars once in a while who are successful entrepreneurs, and we have several this year. I also want to say now that we have 4 of our visiting scholars present. We really could have had 9 presentations this time easily, but Sheen gave a presentation in our seminar yesterday. Eric gave a presentation in our seminar some weeks ago. Where's Deguchi-san? Deguchi-san will give a presentation in our seminar on June the 4th. So you have been excused from giving presentations today. But I wanted to ask Chang-Hwan, with your background of developing new things, was there anything that surprised you when you got to Silicon Valley, or was it sort of like you expected?
Okay, thank you for the question. Always Professor Dasher asked me those essential questions, and really hard to for me to answer the question. Really hard. But I can say, if you want, I'm sorry. Why the most surprising thing in Silicon Valley for me is their mindset in the person of the person who live in Silicon Valley. Not, how can I say that? Not what the position of them, student, employer, manager, the boss, entrepreneur, investor, all of them have the same mindset. What the mindset is, change the world and change the organization. That's the most impressive thing for me.
Okay, that's great. Change the world, and that's a good thing. So I think we all need to do that in our own small ways. Thanks, Chang-Hwan. I'm extremely happy to be able to pull Dr. Kapoor away from teaching his class, which he's usually doing on Wednesday afternoons at this time, and ask my good friend and colleague, Dr. Amit Kapoor, the honorary chairman of the Institute for Competitiveness in India, and also someone who's taught at Harvard Business School and at other universities, and been a really wonderful to start to cooperate with you. Ask you to talk a little bit about our India Dialog initiative.
Thank you, Richard. Pleasure to be sharing some of the ideas around India Dialog here. But first and foremost, everything that we are doing here is because of Richard. So he's a co-conspirator or a partner in crime, as we might say, in terms of a lot of things that we are doing and what we are anticipating to do in the coming few years as well. But as for the India Dialog initiative, the idea was to really create conversations in India. If you really talk about India, India is something which is fairly misunderstood. Either we really look at India in a very positive light, or we look at it in a very negative light, as to say, huge economic potential, joblessness, or whatever, democratic decline. So there are those negative set of things that happen, but there are huge positives that we are seeing within the country as well, and huge positives in terms of elimination of poverty, programs like the aspirational districts trying to really move the country forward. So the idea was to really create a conversation wherein we are able to look at India from an integrated perspective, not really get into those biased opinions. And as we really look at doing it, so as we talk about the India Dialogue Initiative, the point we say is understanding India's economic development its opportunities and challenges, and the evolving landscape or the political landscape. As we were doing this, we started talking about it many years back. I think the first conversation we had about India was possibly in 2015 or 2017. And then it fructified into an initiative last year, wherein we did the first conference called the India Dialogue Initiative or the India Dialogue Summit. But there are fundamentally four things that we are really trying to do out here. What we call as research and publications, events around our research, our work that we are doing, the conversations that we do every month. And then, of course, there are some set of courses that we do. Basis this, there are some kind of interactions that we have been able to do with some senior folks. In fact, Richard was in India last year, wherein he was able to talk to the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, share his views about Silicon Valley, how we can learn from Silicon Valley and things. And we are really looking at really pushing that kind of an envelope forward so that we are able to learn from the location out here. But in terms of research, some of the research that we have done, and this is what Richard and I have done together over the last few years. So this is a report that we did on G20. So as you know, India was hosting the G20 this year. So we actually talk about as to how G20 has affected the multilateral system in the world, whether it's been positive, negative, etc. So we really talk about that whole idea within this report. I'm not going to talk about the report here, but just a very brief overview. It is all available on the website. So I would invite you to actually go to the website and look at this report. The other thing that we did was on cluster mapping. This is a very important report that we did, wherein we try to understand India's economic geography. So we looked at all the 769 districts within the country, and this also became the basis for the competitiveness roadmap for the country. So the competitiveness roadmap for the country was written by three of us. So it was Christian Kettles, Michael Porter, and I. We wrote this competitiveness roadmap at the behest of the Prime Minister. But this report that I was able to do with Richard was something very significant as we were really going along. We also did a report on COVID vaccination initiative in India. All said and done, if you really look at, if there was one country which was able to avoid a catastrophe of a magnitude that a lot of other countries saw, it was India. India did have substantial deaths. We had close to about 600, 700,000 deaths. There are people who will say that there are some unaccounted deaths out there, but if you really count for those unaccounted deaths as well, even then the vaccination was something which was huge, which had a huge positive economic impact. Because by any stretch of even being on a pessimistic side, India did save close to about at least 80 million lives. Because if you really look at the death rate that was happening in the beginning, at 6% was the death rate that happened when the COVID happened. But we were just not even close to that, about 1,400 million people. If we touched about 6%, look at the catastrophe it would have happened. So there was huge skillful management that happened on the side of the government. And we do document this, and we look at the economic impact. As part of this, what we have done is part of the India Dialogue Initiative, we have also initiated a series of working papers. We have had 30 working papers until now, and we have some very significant people who have written for us or written for the working paper series. Vivek Debroy has written, who's the economic advisor to the Prime Minister. We have people like Mark Esposito, who's a professor at Harvard, Christian Kettles, again, a professor at Harvard, and Michael Enright, a Northwestern professor. So we've had some very important people or very significant people or students of India who are or who have contributed to this. So would invite you to come to the website again to look at the series, 30 and counting, and we are looking at coming out with at least 12 to 18 papers each year. What we did this year was I was teaching this course on innovation and competitiveness, and I had the opportunity of working with three very smart students. So we were able to co-publish as well. So we published articles with India's primary or the biggest business magazine, Business World. So we contributed papers there. But overall, over the last 2 years, since this initiative started, we have been writing, or I have been writing. Richard and I have also done a few pieces, but close to 100 pieces have been published. As for the India Dialogue Conversations, a monthly seminar that we do or a webinar that we do, it's a 1-hour conversation that Richard and I host the last Thursday of the month. So if you really want to put it on your calendar, it has to be the last Thursday of the month. The next one happens on the 30th of this month with Arun Kumar, who has done a lot of work on Black economy in India. So we've had some very smart people. We've had the chief economic advisor to the government. We have had the finance minister on this series. So we've had very important people come in and talk about India. And we are looking at continuing this over a period of time. And when Richard was with us in India, we also did something what we would call as a roundtables. And we did two very interesting roundtables. And this was around the report that Richard and I did again on rice fortification in India and the rice fortification effort. So this is where we had some very interesting people again from the community who have been working on rice fortification around their business idea, the technology and things. So this is what we had done, and we did release the report at that point in time. The annual summit that we do effectively on the last Thursday and Friday of February. This was this year that we did. We had people like, we had Amitabh Kant, we have Ramesh Chand with us. Ramesh Chand is a minister of the government. We had Param Iyer, who was heading the Clean India mission. So and also people from the local business community. So we had somebody called Jay Chaudhary. Jay Chaudhary is from Zscaler, who is the richest Indian in India, in the US. So he's just about a $22 billion, $23 billion guy. So I just say just, so it's okay, like because it's not compared to me. So his numbers are just unique. But then he was there. So we had some very fascinating interactions over this. So if you are a student of India, you should really come and look at it. And what we have been able to do is, this is kind of a movement that has happened. Since we started this, what I do see is more and more universities are in US are trying to do it. So recently I was at Princeton, they're trying to emulate, Cambridge is trying to do it. And everybody is now trying to emulate India conversations. So I do get messages that we have started some kind of a movement. So Richard and I have done that, and I always get those messages. This was from this is again from this year. Last year, we had a very, very interesting dialogue that we did. We had close to about 50 odd speakers. This year we had 54, and we are looking at improving over a period of time. So next year we are going to create, at least the anticipation is to create some kind of interaction between entrepreneurs in India vis-a-vis in Silicon Valley, if we are able to execute that. But we are looking at taking those significant steps forward. So for next year, as of now, the dates are 27th and 28th February, likely to change. Maybe we change, but we will have the final date on the 15th of June. So that's where it is. But this is, again, on the courses. Richard did talk about these courses, and it has been a fascinating journey talking to students out here. So Rebalancing Economic Systems is the course Richard and I started about in 23. Sorry,
21.
21, 22, then again, you're offering 25. But I'm just trying to push Richard to make sure that we do what we call a book around it. So I've already sent him the part of the manuscript. So, so now he has to find time, extract time. So he's making a public commitment today that he'll do it in the next 3 days. But then we are trying to work on a book on reimagining capitalism or rebalancing economic systems, the course on understanding modern India, if you want to understand India and its challenges. So what happened around this course is that, again, this is now being made into a book. What I do is, like, I always find my lectures to record the lectures and see how we are able to really make it into a book. So Penguin has again agreed to publish this book over a coming period of time. But as you look at the conference, as I was talking about the whole idea of cluster mapping and the competitiveness roadmap, this is a book that I published this year. But I have to accept that quite a lot of this work of writing happened on this campus. So Richard enabled, or at least the team enabled, that I was just able to be here on campus and just be in my office to write and stuff. So this is what we were able to do. It just got launched in March. So we released this book at the India Dialog. So it is available. So have a look at it. It gets launched in US on the 29th of June, but available on Kindle as of now. But as we really look at the next step forward, there is this book. There is a lot. We are also starting an initiative on cases. We've just recently formalized an association with Harvard Business School Publishing for US-ATMC and Institute for Competitiveness. So we would be writing business cases. So we anticipate to launch the series at the next India Dialogue, and we are committing to publish at least 10 of them. So this is what the whole thing is, and it's absolutely a pleasure to have worked with Richard on this. And absolutely an honor to really have a great team here Kimberly and Brianna, who just are able to handle my idiosyncrasies and all the problems that I create in the system. So that is where it is. But thanks a lot, everybody, for your attention. Thank you.
And Amit, you have ended exactly on time. Thank you very much. So I think that the best thing to do is, I apologize that this has all been one direction communication with no questions or anything, but let's handle the questions informally over break now. We have about 15 minutes and then we will come back with Professor Strebulaev. And so at this point, yeah, let's take a 15-minute break and get to know each other. So I'm delighted to be able to welcome Professor Ilya Strebulaev, who is the David S. Lobel Professor of Private Equity and also Professor of Finance. He's also the founder and director of the Venture Capital Initiative in Stanford's Graduate School of Business. He's been on the Stanford faculty since 2004. He's also a research associate with the National Bureau of Economic Research here in the US. He got his doctorate from the London Business School. He's, of course, published in most of the major journals related to finance and has won Best Paper Awards in the Journal of Finance and also the Journal of Financial Economics. His research has also been featured in the Wall Street Journal, in the New York Times, and in the Harvard Business Review. He has done probably the largest survey of companies in the venture capital industry ever. And as a result of this, he's kind of been able to identify a tendency toward overvaluation among unicorns and how when the excitement wears off, they tend to be 50% more highly valued than they should be. He's also at Stanford been awarded the MBA Distinguished Teaching Award. So thanks so much for coming. And today, this week is a very special week for you because your new book has just come out this week, I think, right?
Yes.
So let me turn the floor to you. Thanks, Professor Strebulaev.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation. First of all, as a finance professor, I believe that incentives drive behavior. So for everybody who survives until the very end of my talk, I'll be very happy to sit over there and sign every single book. Okay. And for those of you who are on Zoom or watching the recording, I'm very sorry, but you missed this amazing opportunity. And I believe that incentives drive behavior even further. So for everybody who is going to come over, I also have a gift for the book. We produced wonderful, beautiful bookmarks so that you can read the book and stick it in, even though many people who already read the book told me they don't need a bookmark. Because once you start reading, you kind of Will not put it down. Okay, so thank you so much for the introduction. I've been at Stanford for 20 years. And this is what's really interesting about me. Should I stand over there, in fact? So that's okay? Okay. So, because I like walking around to hold the audience in attention. So I've been at Stanford for 20 years. And when I came as a young professor of finance, I was teaching the basic finance class, as most young professors of finance do when they come to Stanford. And I did not know anything about the venture capital. So venture capital was not taught in PhD programs in finance, at the London Business School, or at Stanford for that matter. When I came, there was zero finance professors, zero economics professors, zero accounting professors in the business school that were doing anything on venture capital. Why? Nobody cared. And also because it's a private, semi-secret industry, so there was not enough data. And I did not know anything about it. Now, the difference was that, unlike many other faculty members at Stanford, I became very early, very close to my students. So I taught MBA students finance, principles of how to make decisions, investment decisions, financial decisions. And then what I learned very quickly in a couple of years after I stayed in touch with the students, that those who went to the Wall Street, those who went and became finance guys in large companies, those who went for nonprofits, they kind of followed the rules that I told them. You have to do this, okay? And some of them became venture capitalists, and I didn't really know what that was, or became founders of startups, and they did not follow the rules that I taught them. And so there were two explanations. One is they were all wrong, and they had to follow Finance 101, or there's something else was going on. And I was intrigued as a researcher. And this is one of the major reasons why I started studying how venture capitalists make decisions. And then I became really interested, because what I really realized is that first, venture capitalists make decisions very differently. And there is a reason to that seeming madness. There's a reason, because in fact, the venture capital industry turns out extremely impactful. And when I realized that, I stopped doing anything else, okay? And so I founded a venture capital initiative. I developed the venture capital class that is now the most popular at the GSB. Last year, we had 240 MBA students on the waitlist trying to get into the class. But and I wrote the book that came out yesterday in the US, The Venture Mindset. So I need to explain to you why it's called the venture mindset, okay? And here is the reason. So let me explain the word venture, first of all. And I'm going to mention a lot of my research. So one research that in fact really took me on this path is that with my former PhD student, Will Gornell, who is now a professor at UBC, we looked at every single company in this country that went public in the last 50 years. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of companies. And for each company, we very carefully identified how they were financed before they went public, okay? And it was not an easy exercise. And what we found out is that every second company was financed primarily by venture capital. So the venture capital industry is behind half of all the companies that became public in the United States in the last 50 years. Moreover, out of each dollar spent by all these newly created public companies, 92 cents, out of each dollar spent on R&D, which is the growth engine, 92 cents spent by the companies that were venture-backed. That is not the end. If you look at the top companies in the US, depending on the market gyrations, mostly depending on the performance of Tesla stock, it's either 7 or 8 companies on every single day in the top 10 by market cap that were venture-backed. That is also not there. You know, scientists care about causality as opposed to correlation. And what my research showed is that there is a causality, which means the venture capital industry caused the creation of most of these companies. Our empirical analysis suggests 75%. Just 3 out of 4 of these largest companies that were created recently were caused by the venture capital industry. So have you ever thought why you've never heard about French Google or Canadian Microsoft or Japanese Facebook or Italian NVIDIA, or British Alphabet? Well, the reason is those countries never developed strong venture capital industry. That is the reason. And so that is the venture. Venture is really important, much more important than most people realize. Now, why mindset? That is because venture capitalists have been facing forever very, what I call hostile environment. The environment where they were facing very high degree of uncertainty, very high degree of unknown unknowns, disruption, something that is changing very fast, unpredictability. And they had to develop, not because they're smarter than us, but just because they needed to survive and succeed. They needed to develop new skills, new techniques, new playbook. And they did develop, okay? And let me skip this. And they developed these principles that, in fact, most of them themselves don't think consciously, but that they follow. And so I now spent a lot of years, and I, with my team of many people in the Venture Capital Initiative, devoted all this effort to try to identify those principles and then teach my students, teach or eliminate, enlighten other academics. But I always felt that it's constrained because even Stanford students cannot really take my class. So that is the idea behind the book, The Venture Mindset. So in the book, we identified the 9 key principles of the venture mindset. And even though it's about venture capitalists, it is not for venture capitalists. This book is not for investors. Amazingly enough, investors are buying this book in droves. Like Andreessen Horowitz' famous venture firm just ordered 500 copies for all of its portfolio companies of its investors, and NAA, another firm, ordered 250. And in fact, some of the Japanese venture capital firms, you might have heard about TDK. So TDK Ventures just ordered 500 copies to give to every single decision maker who knows English. Okay. Hopefully they have 500 of those. Now, so the book is for all of those who make decisions, whether they are founders, investors, or decision makers in small, medium, or particularly large corporations or large organizations. Okay. So I will not have time to go over, of course, all those 9 principles, but let me identify a couple of things. And let me preface by saying that I think who is going to benefit most from those, from the book and from those principles, okay, are people who make decisions on behalf of others. So for example, if you happen to be working in a large company, okay, in a large company, either the CEO, the C-suite, the executive, or maybe you work in an innovation office, or maybe you're representing this company here in Silicon Valley, you are going to benefit, especially if you digest this and make sure that every single one in your organization who makes decisions really understands this and internalize this. Or if you happen to work for the government and making decisions on behalf of the regulator, then I think this book will first of all explain to you why so many attempts to build Silicon Valley around the world failed. Just because people who are trying to do it took Silicon Valley as they see, but they did not understand the principles. Because without following these 9 principles, you cannot build anything that reminds you of Silicon Valley. Okay, so let me try several principles. Okay, the first one is, and I'm going to use the American baseball analogy. Home runs matter, strikeouts don't. By the way, so I'm originally from Russia, and therefore I came here 20 years ago, but I didn't know anything about baseball. But as a part of the research in the book, I now became a baseball expert. And for those of you who are into baseball, I can tell you something interesting. Do you know that baseball statistics is very similar to venture capital statistics? Okay, so here's the principle. Home runs matter. Home runs meaning a great success, like a great positive outlier or a jackpot. Strikeouts is a failure. Here is statistics from the venture capital. This is a beautiful visualization, but it's really behind this is the data on almost every single venture capital-backed company that the United States ever produced. Out of typical 20 early stage deals that VC-backed companies back, around 15 fail, sometimes more, okay? It's shown 16 here. It's kind of between 15 and 16 statistically. Several more produce decent returns. If you work in a large company, getting 3x, which is $3 per dollar, is a good idea. For VCs, it's mediocrity. Why? Because it doesn't cover all the losses. And statistically, only 1 out of 20 becomes a home run. Kind of you're getting $100 plus on each dollar investment. And the entire venture capital business, and the entire business of innovation, and the entire business of disruption, and I'm going to go forward and say the entire business of the world today, especially driven by AI, is about how to increase the odds of investing in a home run. Okay? And there are many, many layers there, because you can increase the chance of you getting access to a potential home run. You can increase the chance of you identifying a home run or a home run founder. Or once invested, you get a chance to increase the probability, the odds, that that specific company becomes a home run. And by the way, even small changes make a big dent. If you increase this probability from 1 out of 20 to 1 out of 18, you suddenly will statistically will get ahead of everybody else, okay? Now, several points here right away, which are lessons for everybody. So I very often lead strategic offsites for the C-suites of large companies, the CEO, the board members of large companies. But we go somewhere for a day or for 2 days, okay? And we spend like an hour here on this slide and the regular slides. Why? Because I think the traditional mindset would not mind home runs. I mean, who would be against a home run? The traditional mindset, though, dislikes, I would say, loathes strikeouts. And the whole idea is unless you accept or, in fact, embrace strikeouts, embrace failure, okay, you will never have home runs. And given this is the US-Asia Forum, I think in Asia specifically, there is attitude towards failure, which for historically, okay, has been very negative. It has a very, very negative connotation. And when I talk to Asian investors or Asian companies, I provide a lot of interesting statistics from the US. Most of this is from my research, but also from the research of others, that failure is not just something that just happens. It's not just a necessity. It's something that must be there, okay? But not just kind of any failure, specific kind of failure. I will just have time to give you one fact. So we looked at founders in the US. We looked at founders that are serial founders. Serial means those founders that already were founded in the past. And we looked at founders who raised venture money in the past. Now, the reason is it's easy to get data. So if you raise a venture money, we have data, okay? If you raise some kind of, if you bootstrap, we may or may not have money. So again, we looked at serial founders who raised venture money at least for one company. Now, the first fact is intuitive. At least my MBA students are not surprised by this, which is if you're a serial founder, you're more likely to be successful. So if I'm a venture investor and I have to choose other things equal, as Latin people say, ceteris paribus, between serial founder and a new founder, serial founder is better. Here comes the surprising finding. Serial founders who failed in the past, so whose startup was less successful, whose previous startup was less successful, are more likely to be successful. So failure, in fact, leads to success. Now it's conditional raising another venture round. So as a result of this, many VCs here in Silicon Valley, not only they don't look down on founders who failed, but in fact, very often they say, this is fantastic. Like you experienced all this trouble, you've learned your lesson. Now you will have better resilience. You'll be able to respond better, okay? Now, this is true also about, not just about VCs, about venture-minded organizations. So let's see whether, I have a couple of thoughts here from famous VCs. My friend Alex Rampel, who is at Andreessen Horowitz, says areas of omission are much bigger than areas of commission. So he cares only about those startups that he could have invested, but did not invest. And this is exactly what Bill Gurley says at Benchmark. I don't remember about any strikeouts, but if I miss Google, I will never forget it. That's what kind of he says. But more importantly, venture-minded leaders do the same. So here are two quotes that I really like. And behind the quotes are actual behavior. Jeff Bezos, everything needs to scale, including the size of your failed experiments. So here's a story. It's in the book, but it never stops amazing all those important people, okay? I talk to. So you know about Amazon successes, AWS, Alexa, of course, e-commerce platform. Have you ever heard about Amazon failures? Well, one famous failure is Fire Phone. Have you heard about Fire Phone? Okay, I mean, Amazon decided to compete with Apple. Okay, bad luck. So they spent a lot of money, like a lot of money, even for Amazon, a lot of money. Failed completely. Like Fire Phone was launched, huge success, and then 3 months later, they just wrote the entire investment off. They destroyed every single Fire Phone. What happened to Amazon's executive vice president who was in charge of the Fire Phone division? That is the point. In every other company, or in every other unventure-minded company, well, the executive would be fired. This guy was promoted. This guy was promoted because Bezos said, great, I've just spent a couple of $1 billion on educating you. So I can't afford to lose that money again. Okay, and by the way, this guy was in charge of Alexa, development of Alexa. So in fact, it's been huge success. And he's, I believe, now still a very important person in Amazon, like in top 5 people and top 7 people. Another interesting example is Netflix. Netflix, have you ever thought about a very interesting fact that never stops amazing me? The market capitalization of Netflix, a newcomer, and nobody 20 years ago, is larger than the market cap of all the Hollywood studios combined. Like all. Isn't it amazing? I think just there's a difference. The difference is how they make decisions. And this is here. We have to take more risk. This is the founder and the CEO. Because we should have a higher, he calls it cancel rate overall, which is failure rate. Okay? And indeed, amazingly enough, I mentioned baseball. Netflix, unlike baseball, is more difficult to get statistics on Netflix. But the statistics that I received suggest it's very similar to venture. 1 out of 20 Netflix projects become a home run. Everything else just doesn't matter, fail, whatever. Okay. So my suggestion to all of you, whether you're in the innovation office, here, a founder, an executive of a large company, think about this principle. Without putting this principle into action, it's very difficult to create an innovative environment. And I believe that we are entering the real era of disruption in the next 10 years, based on all these changes that I see. And I think this principle is going to be fundamental. Why? Because I think that we're entering the world, and the representatives here of large companies should take note. And I've done a lot of research on this recently because I've been fascinated by this. We're entering the world of very different competition. And by the way, regulators are incredibly behind this. So the definition of competition is changing so fast that the Federal Trade Commission, the US, anti-monopoly, etc., it's antitrust, they really don't really understand what's happening. In the past, the industries were well defined, okay? And yes, there were industries where there were oligopolies, like Coke and Pepsi. But most industries, there were a lot of competitors, okay? There were large players, there were smaller players. I think that is going to be in the past. Here are 2 interesting examples. Starbucks, which by the way, is a venture-backed company. Because in fact, VCs don't invest in new technologies, as I'm sure every single of you thought. VCs invest in new business models. It so happens that new business models typically happen in technology, but Starbucks provides a new business model of coffee chains. 40% of all the coffee stores in the US today. The rest doesn't matter. Now, Well, I always play this game with the participants if I have more time. Name me the largest ride sharing in the US. Well, everybody says Uber. Name me the second largest in the US. Everybody says Lyft. Name me the third. You will not be able to name the third. And if you are from Asia, from Dubai, okay, you will never be able to name the third, okay? Because, as I say, for every Uber, there's Lyft, and then there's nothing else. And this defines the new era of the world competition. Oops, the slide is missing. Which is the power law. The power law means is that in every single industry, there's going to be a huge big winner. There's going to be the second runner-up, and nothing else matters. And for every single large company here, my prediction is that your major competition is going to come outside your current competition, outside your current industry. That's my guess. Okay. So let me skip this. So let me go to the second principle of the venture mindset, which I find very, very useful, which is get outside the four walls. Facts about venture capitalists is that they have beautiful offices that they don't use. Very stupid, right? Typically, you can find them in their offices only once a day. By the way, that was also true before pandemic. Once a day. The rest of the week, they travel. They try to find those amazing entrepreneurs, or they work with the existing portfolio companies. This is the cafe at the GSB. Every single time I go there to get my coffee, I see several venture capitalists that are trying to meet those fantastic MBA students or engineering students before anybody else meets them. Okay. So, and that's called the getting outside of the four walls. Here's a very interesting research we've done. And those of you who are in charge of corporate innovation should pay attention. We compared the LinkedIn profiles of VCs and their corporate peers. So those VCs who work in large corporations, corporate VCs. And what we found? First, we found is that the LinkedIn profiles of VCs are much larger. So they have many more connections than the LinkedIn profiles of corporate innovators. Now, that by itself is not a problem, okay? What we found out, which was much more interesting, is that the LinkedIn connections of VCs are much more diversified. They're coming from different geographies, different industries, different firms, small, large firms, different educational backgrounds, different gender, different race, and so on and so forth. When we looked at corporate innovators, those who are actually in charge of looking outside their corporation, okay? They're very undiversified. Like most of their connections, either from their college, their graduate program maybe, and their current employer and their previous employer. And that is a problem because if you look at all these great ideas that are around us, most of those come outside our existing networks, outside our existing ideas. And VCs, the venture mindset, clearly realizes that. Now, those are corporate innovators. We actually failed to do this research with respect to just corporate managers because many of them have such a poor LinkedIn, we just did not have enough data, okay? So getting outside four walls, I think is very important. And well, one action piece of advice is check your LinkedIn connections and try to diversify it in a meaningful way. And I'm being very, very serious, okay? By the way, you know, one great thing about learning and studying venture mindset principles is that I changed my own behavior, okay? And one behavior here I changed is I'm an academic, okay? Academics will sympathize with me. I travel all the time. And when I traveled, I used to have my, like what Kimberly has right now, my laptop with my earphones, and I look at my paper or somebody else's paper because I'm going to criticize somebody else's paper. And I didn't care about anybody else, okay? And nowadays, what I'm doing is I have a goal. I still travel even more than I used to, okay? I have a goal. I have a goal the following. on every single flight that I'm taking, I must talk to at least 4 people whom I don't know otherwise. At least 4. Could be standing in the passport line, okay, or in the plane. Now, first I realized, and I've been doing this a lot already. So I like talk to 150 people now, I think, whom otherwise I would have never ever met. First, they're very interesting people. And they live very differently from me because, you know, the truth is we all live in our own bubbles and we think it's normal. Like, you know, I'm a professor, she's a professor, well professor, so we'll think, well, everybody lives like us. That's absolutely untrue. Okay, so I met a Hollywood producer on one of the flights, and I ended up going to Hollywood and spending a day on the movie set as a result of that. Isn't it amazing? Or I met a guy who is a journalist, who is the chief editor of one of the most important horse racing publications in the world. He was flying from Dubai, World Cup, horse racing, and I didn't know anything about horse races, even though I studied a little bit for the book, because one of the principles in the book, bet on the jockey, not just the horse. And so we argued with him for half an hour, and he ended up writing an article about this Stanford professor who is thinking about the jockey versus the horse. And so you never know. So this is specific action for you to take that I think is very useful. Okay. A quick question, because I have 5 minutes left. A quick question: how many of you here are founders or would like to be a founder? Okay, so this is going to be my final example, and I'm on the second principle. So you will have to read the book, okay, carefully to learn about the other principles. And in fact, even for these 2 principles, there's a lot of stuff there. But here is my experiment that is amazing. And I think for professors here, it's going to be amazing that Stanford allowed me to do it. Okay. So we started studying where the venture capital deals come from. And they come from all over. This is getting outside the 4 walls. You never know where your deal comes from. What I found is that about 10% from my data, deals came with what we call inbound from management. It's a very academic terminology. It really means cold call. Like you're a founder emailing the VC, whom you don't know, okay, and say, I'm a founder of a great startup. VC's reply, the venture capitalist replies, you meet, they invest. That's that. Well, there was an inconsistency. I talked to venture capitalists, successful ones, unsuccessful ones, old ones, young ones, okay? Everybody told me that we don't take cold calls. Like, don't email us, don't call us, don't send messages on LinkedIn. There's like 0 probability we will respond. So that seems to be inconsistent. And I love inconsistencies because that's how research progresses. So what we did. With my students, we decided to do it. We created 50 fake startups. We had great fun creating those. For every startup, we created fake websites, fake email servers, fake LinkedIn profiles, fake, what else? A lot of stuff, fake logos. Okay. Then we created 200 founders, fake founders. For every founder, we created all of that, okay? And then we took the database of about 7,000 investors, VCs and active angel investors, and we send them emails, which is call emails, blurbs about startups. And again, fake startups, fake founders, actual investors. Okay, here's an example of this email, short email. Of course, we crafted it well. And the idea was very simple. By definition, by design, the venture capitalists who received this email, they didn't know, they never heard about the startup name. We made sure that the names were such that they didn't exist before. And they never heard about the founder. We also made sure about this. And we collected responses. And we were interested to find out what is the probability of a positive response. A positive response is a VC replies and asks for, can you send me a pitch deck? Can we chat on Zoom? Can we meet for coffee? I would like to call you. Here's my junior partner, Henry, who would like to meet you. I mean, something like this, which is in fact how a typical conversation starts when there's a warm introduction to venture capitalists. Okay? Now, we spent a lot of time designing it, I can tell you. And of course, I confided there's big secrecy because, of course, once this is published in the book to join in Fast Company, you know, the experiment, you cannot continue the experiment. So, so we, very close VC friends of mine helped me, like about 6 of them. And every single one of them told me, don't do it. Because you're going to spend a lot of money, which we did, a lot of your effort, which we did, a lot of resources, which we did, and there will be no responses. Like, it will be a failure because for this experiment to work, you have to get some responses. Okay, so they said 0%. Here's the fact. The fact was, again, there were 50 startups, 80,000, to be precise, 83,000 emails. We got between 8 and 15% of responses. The least popular startup received 8% of responses. The most popular startup out of 50 received 15%. I mean, every 6th investor responded in a very positive way. Now, here comes a real deal, is that more successful VCs, remember, we actually knew about every VC. Angels, we knew less, but about VCs, we actually know a lot. Their returns, the size of their fund, I mean, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We know a lot of stuff, okay? And we found out that more successful VCs were much more likely to respond. So they say we never respond, but actually they do. So for those founders here, yes, warm introductions still work better, I guess, even though in fact we did not test this. But cold work. Now you have to craft these introductions carefully, of course, okay? But if you have an interesting startup, if you know how to do this, then this works, okay? So let me stop here. I think I'm out of time. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I hope that I gave you enough information for you to be interested to read this book without actually need for a bookmark, even though I'm going to give these bookmarks to all of you. And make sure that you can, oh, by the way, sorry, I'm going to, if I allowed to advertise, is there an advertising pitch allowed? So, so we were promoting the book. So the book came out yesterday in the United States. We had a book launch. Tomorrow it's coming out in the UK and then globally in English. And to promote the book, we gave some special bonuses. And the special bonuses are, if you order the book, the hardcover, then we had a special series of special webinars where we talk about this for either founders or executives of large companies in a great detail. The webinar is 1.5 hours, and also the unicorn report that I produced, because in fact, my team studies every single unicorn in the United States. And also now we have the global unicorn data, even though we haven't yet released any results, but we're going to do in the fall. So this offer is actually going to expire either tonight or tomorrow night. Officially tonight, but likely will extend it until tomorrow night for a simple reason that my social media assistant is away for one day. Okay, so, and I don't know how to take it off the website. So if you're interested to advertise this to your friends, send this information to them. So if they buy this and send the email to my social media team at team@vdcminds.com, then they still will be able to attend the webinar and get the report. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Please wait for the microphone. We've got microphones coming.
All right, great talk. Thank you so much. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. This is my third company. My question is, as a founder, I love the principle you share. So you mentioned 9. I'm definitely going to read the book. But which are the core principles as a founder who is, will be applicable? Yeah.
Very good question. So, so every single principle is important, but maybe different implications of the same principles. For example, let me go back and then I'll introduce another principle. So if we talk about home runs, I would say that for founders, it's very difficult to implement directly because you don't have 20 projects, you have 1. Okay. But what is really interesting is that if you're going to raise money from investors, this is in action right away. For example, if you deal with a venture capitalist who is managing a $75 million fund, or who is managing a $1 billion fund, they're going to approach your company. Your company is the same in a very different way. Because from their point of view, a home run is going to mean different things. Somebody who is going to invest $5 million into you out of $75 million fund, okay, for them, home run is about 25x. Because the question that VCs ask, can you return my funds? If they're going to invest 20 million out of a $1 billion fund, for them, home run is going to be 50x. So right away, just thinking about this, okay, you will see why the approach of this VCs to this exactly the same company at exactly the same time is going to be so different. Okay, let me give you an example of another principle, and the principle is called double down or quit. And I think that out of 9 principles, this is one of top 3 for founders, which is, there are a lot of implications there. So first of all, what is double down or quit from the VC point of view? It's relatively straightforward. Startups raise money many times. And the most important job for a venture capitalist, in fact, is not to decide whether to invest in a startup. Is to decide whether they're going to invest again in the same startup. But the same problem is for the founders, which is the most difficult decision, but the most important decision in every single founder's life is when it is the right time to pivot. Most successful startups, and we investigated every single unicorn, like 1,400 unicorns already in the US, all of them pivot. But pivot is difficult because of changing your business model, changing customer, changing prototype, etc. And when we look at many failed startups, because we paired every single unicorn with a lot of startups that did not become unicorns, one of the reasons is that founders or the management team fails on this principle. They continue for too long on the path. That definitely is a bad one, is a bad strategy, because they already put so much effort into this strategy. And smart VCs know how to deal with this, and the book describes it. And I think that amazingly enough, all of us, including founders, can use exactly those ideas. Okay, so when you read the book, you'll see how you can apply this to resolve this double down or quit paradigm. Now, for large companies, it's also equally important, and it has a special name. For large companies, it's called escalation of commitment. Again, you can read about this in the book. Other questions?
Thank you for the great talk. I have a question about whether you can provide some advice for bootstrapping founders, and also what could be the strategy to fundraise, and when would be a best time to fundraise for those founders. Thank you.
So the biggest question for founders between bootstrapping and fundraising is, what actually do you want from life? You want to try to scale and grow quickly, or you don't want to scale, or you can't scale. So many founders are fine with reaching, a certain size and then stop growing. But in fact, you may not need to raise funds at all, and that's okay. Typically, with some notable exceptions, you cannot have a business that is scaling very fast by bootstrapping. The only exception is that your bootstrapping business brings a lot of profit right away, early on. And there are businesses like this, but there are exceptions, not the rules. So the decision to fundraise, or if to fundraise and when to fundraise, is mostly about the right time to scale. And by the way, fundraise from whom? From angels, from VCs, or from somebody else? It's typically about the time and the type of scaling. Now, the venture business is about home runs, meaning that they would want you to scale fast. By the way, here's the simple truth. They care much less about your failure than you, because you are the founder of one company, they have a portfolio of 20 plus companies, okay? They, of course, would love you to succeed, but they would like you to scale fast. If you're very risk averse, or you do not want to scale for various reasons, maybe you need angel money. Angels are much more patient or have much less power, much less control over you. But many founders, many of my students, many of my MBA students at Stanford who would come to my class to learn the tricks of how to raise money from VCs. After the class, they will come to my office, and I meet with every single of my students one-on-one in my office. And they say, Professor, I decided not to raise venture money. That's just not for me. And that's great response, by the way. Okay? But that also means that they will never scale. You have to decide yourself.
Thank you. Next question.
Yeah, thank you for a great presentation. Speaking of the principle one, I'm very curious about how do VCs usually utilize such a lot of failures, strikeouts. I'm sure VCs learns lots of failures and failures from many startups. Then they have such a theory of failure management, but I think it's kind of black box for non-VCs, founders and outsiders. So yeah, I'm very interested in that.
Oh. Once you read the book, it's not going to be a black box for you. Hopefully. Okay, that's number one. Number two is that here's a very important point to realize. That failures matter. Fail, and you still can invest again or can try again and you succeed. Doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter, okay? So my own example is about this. When I was a PhD student, what PhD students do, they write papers. And I wrote the first paper and it was unsuccessful. I wrote the second paper, it was marginally successful. I wrote the third paper, it failed. And maybe I should have quit, but I wrote the fourth paper. And that became, well, a home run in the academic world. And so I got a job at Stanford. But that's, so the fail, do I remember about those papers that did not succeed? Nobody knows about them. I actually don't remember them as well nowadays. Who cares? Who cares? It matters only, it matters only either if there is no success, or more importantly, if you're not allowed to try again. So I think the biggest challenge with the design of decision-making in large organizations, or sometimes in the society, is that you cannot try again. And by the way, that is very dangerous. In economics, there's a very important concept called self-selection. Self-selection means that people self-select in response to somebody else's actions. So for example, okay, everybody will provide amazing examples in the book about Italian firms. It's not my researchers, it's European researchers about this. People respond to incentives by self-selecting. So if you place people in the environment where failure is not possible, they don't try because they are afraid of failing, of course. I think the major reason why large companies very often fail in disruptive innovation is because, not because they have more stupid people, they actually have better people than startups. I mean, almost by definition, okay, sorry to founders here, a large company can afford to pay better people, okay, more educated, more sophisticated, etc., more accomplished. They are placed in situations where they have no incentives to try hard because they know they're going to be punished for failure. So the main problem is how you design this. Now, cultural attitudes also play a large role. So what is culture? I have a colleague at the GSB, Professor Charles O'Reilly, and he defines culture in a very, very, I think, smart way. Very simple, very smart way. What is culture? When I come to, let's say I'm going to work for the US Asian Center, okay? And culture is I come to you and Kimberly is working for the center. And I'm now a new employee. And I will ask Kimberly, what should I do? How should I change my behavior to succeed here? That's culture. Kimberly will say, oh, you should drink coffee in the morning and tea in the afternoon, otherwise you will not succeed. So that's culture, that's specific actions. So, and if there's a culture that, you know what, you cannot fail. That's also, the challenge with this is that only the cultural attitudes towards failure could really go only from the top. The CEO, the chairman, the board, the owner. It's very difficult for an individual manager to implement it because the individual manager or executive just responds to incentives. It's a great question.
Thank you. Next question. Back in the back.
Yeah, Professor, thank you so much for the insightful speech. And I come from VC, and I've got a question about the quality versus quantity. You mentioned you go outside more and meet more founders, but I've been struggling with is it about the quantity of the number of the people that you meet, or is it more of a finding a good quality? You keep yourself within events or curated audiences, or getting more researches done to actually capture the more high quality, tech stack founders to pursue after. So is it about do you think it's about quantity, or is it more of a, capturing the quality of founders?
I would say that it's quantity. And then you have the right methods to convert it into quality. If you just have quality, it's not enough. You have quantity, it is not enough. And so the venture mindset principles that we discuss in the book is about how to generate quantity and then convert this into quality. Let me give you an example. So this principle 4, which means say no 100 times. So that's statistics. And by the way, if you're a VC, you go home, I'm professor, I'm going to give you a home assignment. And do this for what you did. What is this? This shows you the deal funnel of a typical successful venture capitalist. So for each deal made, there's 100+ deals complete. Quantity, quality, statistical quality, okay? Potentially home run. Now, and there's a deal funnel. And if you don't have a lot of companies here, it's very unlikely you will get calls. And we see this. We see this in the data. But also, how you convert this into quality, it turns out that smart VCs use different methods at the top of the funnel and at the bottom of the funnel. So here, going kind of from 100 to 10, more or less, okay, you use what I call a fast mode or fast lane. And then you use slow lane. So fast lane, by the way, the reason why it's fast lane, you just don't have enough time. You worked so hard to get to know all those fantastic founders, but then you need to quickly to funnel them through. So here's the question you're going to ask. In the fast lane, smart VC is asking very specific questions, which is why not to invest? Notice the addition of not, that's critical. By the way, psychological research shown way before that if you ask a positive question and a negative question, then the brain starts working differently, okay? So it's the same here. For the book, by the way, we did a lot of fascinating research. You will read about this. One, which I never thought I would ever do, it was a lot of fun. My colleagues and I watched hundreds of hours of Shark Tank and the Canadian version called Dragon's Den. So that's for research reasons. Why? Because it's really interesting. So Shark Tank is really only about fast lane. We don't see slow lane. It's boring. Okay, it's not cute enough. But what we see here is that a shark asks a question, the founder responds, and if it's obvious, so we coded responses, and we coded responses by whether it's obviously raised a red flag. And then if it's raised a red flag, we also independently looked at, luckily for Shark Tank, you actually can see the facial expression of the shark. And it's amazing, there's a huge correlation. The moment there's a red flag, you just can see the shark changes. Like the shark loses all the interest, just switches off, turns off, no more questions, okay? And you see this. So that is the fast lane. Now, of course, it's easier said than done, which is there's an art and science of what kind of red flags, and you gain this with experience. We'll give some examples in the book. And likely for large executives, for example, is going to be different from VCs, and from some VCs is going to be different from other VCs. So that is the principle. Okay, please.
Get a mic. Thank you.
So just a curious question. What are those typical red flags that you would notice? Just one or two of
I
them.
can tell you for VCs. For VCs, there are two types of red flags. The first red flag is all about the team. And that is because, by the way, that is the huge difference. This is the single biggest difference between large companies and VCs mindset. Large companies, it's all about the horse, the business model, the product, the market, the value proposition. Of course, that's all important. For VCs, it's who is going to implement the horse, the jockey. I'm going to say something provocative, especially for representatives of the large companies here. Ideas are overrated. You know, whenever founders talk to me and they say, we have this amazing idea, I say, I can't judge whether it's amazing or not. But what I know that if it is an amazing idea, somebody else is trying to implement this as well. Okay? So it's about founders who are going to implement it. So therefore, VCs, all the red flags, and I can go into detail what kind of red flags they see. But the moment there's a red flag about founders, that's that. The second type of the red flag for VCs is the market size. If the market size is too small, that means that, well, whatever you do, you cannot be my home run. And therefore there is no point in me of losing time on you. Okay, so those are two types of most common red flags. And again, this is the red flag. They don't decide to invest at this point. They decide this is the reasons why we will not proceed with the further due diligence. Make sense?
So, I have a question. I'm Sana. I'm a student here, and my question is: have there been qualitative studies in the past of venture capital's like decision-making process for what kind of investment, what kind of companies to invest in? And my background for that is I'm taking a class called Politics of Algorithms by Professor Angel Kistan, and in class we did. The professor's argument was that investors decide on what kind of startups to invest in based on like cultural signals that they see. Like, for example, like past the successful startup founders have been like white men, for example, and they went to like elite schools or and then he was saying that many people who are selected to be invested in, that their first startup does not succeed, their second startup does not succeed, but they do several and maybe their fifth one succeeds. And so I was wondering, have there been any qualitative studies on what the decision-making process is?
Well, first of all, likely your professor read my articles. Second is that I'm not really sure what you mean by qualitative. I've done a lot of quantitative studies on this, which obviously with qualitative implications, okay? So one study that you, I think, might want to look at is called How Do Venture Capitalists Make Decisions? That is the name of the article. And it's now the most cited academic article. That goes over all the dimensions about how VCs make decisions. Now, it's true that venture capitalists look for patterns because those are shortcuts. And it is also true that unfortunately shortcuts lead to biases, which means that in the past, we as VCs, only white founders, white male founders to be precise, okay, with some notable exceptions. So that's a pattern. And by the way, what is really interesting is that if you look at the recent data, then there are a lot of VCs now who specialize in investing in, let's say, women-led startups or in minority-led startups, or founders from underprivileged backgrounds, and there are reasons behind it. And it's not because they just, care about DEI or social impact. That's financial proposition, because they believe that those are the founders that have been overlooked, and therefore their odds of finding a home run there at a reasonable price is much higher. Okay, but have a look at that article.
Hi, Professor. So when you're looking at the data, we also understand it from an evolving perspective. The VC landscape had evolved quite a lot from the old, small brotherhood to now the founders fund, the CVCs, the bank-backed, and then nowadays Sequoias are also going into the hybrid model. So out of these different animals and types of VCs, how do you discern what they say versus what they do? That's number one question. Number two is, if you had time to look into these different types of VCs that grow out in the last like 20, 30 years, do they actually have a preference on some of these principles that I want you to probably double click on that. Thank you.
First of all, I'm a very skeptical person. It's, I guess, the combination of my Russian background. Russians are very skeptical by nature. And of course, professors are very skeptical by nature. So it's like overlap, okay? So I typically don't believe what people say. I look at the actions. Actions, I think, speak more than words most of the time. Okay. So in terms of the stuff, the VC industry is constantly evolving. Why? Because there's innovation, because people are trying to become better than they were in the past and trying to become better than anybody else. That makes sense. And like with the VCs, there are a lot of failures. Some of them are easy to predict. I think some of them are difficult to predict. So for example, about 7 years ago, all my students, MBA students, told me about crowdfunding. That the VCs are going to be disrupted, like the traditional VCs are going to be like Sequoias will stop existing because of crowdfunding. And I was very skeptical about it for fundamental reasons. And of course, it didn't happen. And nowadays, crowdfunding is unimportant. And there were a lot of other innovations that didn't work out kind of very well. I think hybrid is also not really going to work out like it. Okay, it's going to be niche, but it's not going to replace the existing model. But some innovations might. So one innovation, I would say not really innovation, but a trend more, that I think is going to change dramatically the VC landscape is corporate VC. And there is a reason behind that. There are two reasons. One is because in the past, startups did not scale up, going back to your question, did not scale up that fast. And so they did not need access to those distribution channels that large companies have very quickly. And the truth is they also were of no interest to large companies. So these days, in 12 months, startups scale so fast, then suddenly strategic investors either interested or scared. And so we see the proliferation. My team tracks all those CVCs, corporate VCs. And when we started this job, I believe there were like 400 of them, and most of them were strange, curious. And now there's more than 3,000 of them. A friend of mine, James Mawson, is the head of the GCV, Global Corporate Venturing Organization, and they've been organizing conferences for VCs. And I went to the first conference in Sonoma County. There were like 60 people, strange looking. Knew nothing about VC, barely, okay? Then they had to move because Sonoma County doesn't have a large enough hotel. They're now in a huge hotel in Monterey, and I think James told me he needs to look for another place. The last time I went in February, there were like 3,000 people. And by the way, they're now meeting everywhere in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in London, and wherever. Okay, there's chapters. Now, the second reason, I think, is that slowly corporations become more sophisticated. And again, I hope that this book is going to help. Because traditionally venture corporate VCs were unsuccessful. And they're still largely unsuccessful. So that will change. I mean, the beauty of corporations, many of them can afford to lose money. Unlike founders, unlike VCs, really. If you lose even $1 billion on the corporate VC, and if you're a $500 billion corporation, okay, that's just a learning experience. So this, I think, is going to stick, and I think that's going to impact the world of VC much more in the long term. Okay.
I'm afraid we're about out of time, but I've got to ask a last question. Do you have any special advice for people about how to apply the lessons in your book? I'm sure you've thought through how people are going to react when they read it. So do you have any things that you would like to? Yeah.
Thank you. Well, first is I believe in the two applications of teaching. The first one is to apply this to yourself. So we give a lot of stories in the book. I believe in the power of storytelling. So every single page is a story about venture capitalists, startup founders, venture mind organizations, or failed organizations for specific people. Okay. And of course, we choose cute stories. Okay. We need to ensure that you turn the page. My suggestion, though, if you would like really to learn from this, is to ask yourself a question, think about your personal experience as a personal professional where you were in the same situation. And by the way, as I was writing the book and as I'm learning venture minds principles myself over the last 15 plus years, you know, I always thought about what this means for me. Like, I'm not a venture capitalist. I'm investing in my students, but I'm not really a venture capitalist, okay? But I already gave you one example, but I can continue on how I change my behavior a lot. So this is one piece of advice I have. The second piece of advice I think is really important. Teachers have really a great advantage, which is they explain the same stuff again and again, okay, to a different audience. And by doing so, they learn. So let me finish, Richard, by a joke from my Russian days. So I went to Moscow State University and I studied math there. And here's a joke about two math professors that at the time when I was told this joke, I just laughed. And now I think it's a very deep joke. Here's a joke. Two math professors talk to each other, okay? And one of them complains about a student, that there was a math exam and the student failed to prove a theorem. And the math professor says, well, I explained this theorem to him, how to prove it. And then he failed again. I explained it again and he failed again. Well, do you know, already I understood how to prove it and he still couldn't. So the joke is that finally, professor also initially did not know how to prove the theorem. But finally, he understood how to prove the theorem. And the students still didn't understand, but I understood. So every single time in fact, you know, I've been doing this many, many times. Every single time I teach something that I think is so obvious to me, I learn something new. So piece of advice, become teachers, which is explain whatever principles you learn here, lead to discussions. You know, there's a Greek philosopher, Plato, that taught us Socratic methods. And I believe in this here, which is start a conversation at a dinner table, in the coffee shop, or wherever, in the coffee break, give a story, maybe add your own story, and try to discuss. And I think this will lead to changing behaviors. Thank you.
Bravo.